My name is Eva. I'm 34 years old and I graduated top of my class from Ohio State's Fisher College of Business in 2011, then spent the next 9 years quietly running the financial backbone of a $19 million steel fabrication company that would have collapsed twice without me. Disowned, that's the word my father used the night he told me to leave the house on Birchwood Lane and never come back. Disowned and sitting on a 22% ownership stake in Vance Industrial Supply worth, at last valuation, $6.2 million. Picture this, September 12, 2025, 7:40 in the evening. 300 guests in black tie under the chandeliers of the Cedar Falls Grand Hotel ballroom. Champagne glasses lifted for Vance Industrial's 40th anniversary. And a silver-haired man named Frank Delgado walking straight past the event coordinator with a cracked leather folder under his arm, saying my name into a live microphone before my brother could finish his toast. I'll get to that moment. It's worth the wait, I promise you. But first, let me tell you what my father, Walter Vance, said to me the night everything broke. You're not a Vance anymore if you can't do one simple thing for this family. 9 words. I've never forgotten a single one. Before we go further, if you're watching this, drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is right now for you. I read every single one. Let me take you back to where this really started. 12 years ago, in a house that smelled like my mother's pot roast and my father's cigar smoke, where my older brother Marcus, 38 now, was the golden name etched on every office door, and I was the daughter who's good with numbers. My grandfather, Elias Vance, founded the company in 1961 with a business partner, Frank Delgado, a metallurgist with a 6th-grade education and a genius for tolerances. Their first plant was a converted grain warehouse on Route 9 outside Cedar Falls, Ohio, population 14,000, the kind of town where everyone still knows whose name is stamped on the water tower. When my grandfather died in 1998, he left explicit instructions in the original 1987 partnership restructuring agreement. Whoever held operational competence, not just the family name, should carry real authority. My father inherited the majority stake, but it was me who inherited the clause nobody in the family bothered to read closely. Marcus got the corner office with the walnut desk, a company Mercedes, and the title of Vice President of Sales at 26. I got a cubicle next to the server room that always smelled faintly of machine oil and burnt coffee, the unofficial title of controller, and a 70-hour week reconciling accounts nobody else understood. At every Christmas party, my father would stand Marcus up in front of the plant floor and introduce him as the future of this company. I was introduced, if at all, as Eva, she does the books. I didn't resent it, not at first. I loved the work. Watching a supply chain hum, watching numbers tell the truth even when people didn't, that was mine. The trigger came on November 14, 2016. Marcus had sunk $340,000 into a used equipment leasing venture that was hemorrhaging money, and the bank wanted a personal guarantee before extending a bridge loan. He needed a co-signer. He needed me. The terms were 18% interest cross-collateralized against my house and my shares in Vance Industrial. I read every page. Then I said one word. My father called an emergency dinner that Thursday, November 17, 2016, 6:30 sharp. The dining room was lit by 3 candles my mother never blew out, the smell of rosemary chicken and burnt garlic still hanging in the air, my grandmother's wedding china stacked on the sideboard like it was waiting to be broken. Marcus sat across from me in his gray suit, sleeves still rolled from a sales call, arms crossed, jaw tight. My father set down his fork, the clink loud against the plate, and said, "Your brother needs this, and you're going to sign it, or you're going to explain to this family why you won't." I explained. Calmly, hands flat on the tablecloth. I told them the loan would cross-collateralize against the building that housed 140 jobs, that Marcus's leasing venture had no revenue model and 11 months of red ink, that I wasn't willing to gamble Grandpa's company on a side project built on hope. My mother started crying into her napkin. Marcus leaned forward and said, "She's always thought she was smarter than everyone in this family." Then my father said those 9 words, in the same flat voice he used to read off delivery manifests. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. My hands didn't even shake. I folded my napkin into a neat square, set it beside my untouched plate, thanked my mother for dinner, and drove myself home to my apartment in silence. The radio off the entire 19 minutes. Whatever they expected that night, it wasn't dignity. But dignity was what I left with. Year 1. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment on Fenwick Street, $825 a month, second-hand couch, a window that looked out over a laundromat and kept working because my ownership stake came with a binding clause. Any shareholder above 20% had sign-off authority on contracts above $500,000. I was still, legally, required to approve. Marcus started telling people at the Rotary Club and the plant floor alike that I'd walked away from the family business. Employees believed it. The town believed it. I let them because proving it wrong out loud felt smaller than just doing the work. Year 2, I built a folder. Not metaphorically, an actual navy blue 3-ring binder, then a shared drive, then a locked email archive. Every authorization I signed at midnight from my kitchen table, every voicemail from the plant manager, Raymond Osei, asking for my sign-off at 11:40 p.m. before a supplier deadline, every screenshot of Marcus forwarding contracts for my silent, unacknowledged approval. Documentation became the only proof I existed in that building at all. I labeled the binder tabs by year, in blue ink, the same handwriting my grandfather used on his old shop drawings. Year 3 through year 6, the company grew from $11.4 million to $19.2 million in annual revenue, largely on a cost restructuring model I designed and implemented remotely, saving an estimated $680,000 a year in freight and vendor renegotiation alone. Marcus took the stage at every trade dinner and Rotary luncheon to accept the credit. I took a quiet promotion, off the books of the family, to a logistics firm in Columbus, 90 minutes away, where a woman named Priya Anand, CFO of a $340 million conglomerate, became the mentor my own father never was. Priya taught me how to read a boardroom in 4 seconds flat, how to negotiate without raising my voice, and how to survive a family that mistook silence for surrender. Year 7, my mother sent one text. Hope you're doing okay. I didn't answer. Year 8, a birthday card came back to me unopened, stamped, returned to sender. In Marcus's handwriting, the ink slightly smudged like he'd hesitated before sealing it. That was the coldest contact of all, not silence, but a small, deliberate cruelty. Then, this March 3rd, everything shifted. Vance Industrial needed $2.1 million in expansion capital for a new stamping line to land a contract with a regional auto supplier, and under the 1987 agreement, any refinancing above $1 million required unanimous shareholder consent, including mine. Suddenly, 9 years of silence ended with a phone call from my father at 8:15 on a Tuesday morning. We'd like you to come to dinner. Let's put the past behind us. His voice was warmer than I'd heard it since I was maybe 12 years old. I should have felt something. Instead, 3 days later, my cousin Denise accidentally forwarded me a group chat screenshot meant for Marcus's circle, the kind of mistake that happens when you're typing too fast on a Sunday night. In it, Marcus had written, "Once Dad signs the refinancing, we push the buyback clause and dilute her under 20%. She won't have veto power anymore, and we finally run this thing without her looking over our shoulder." Reconciliation, it turned out, had a price tag, and it wasn't remorse. It was a spreadsheet. I called an attorney, Rachel Kim, a partner at a firm in downtown Columbus with a corner window and a stack of manufacturing case files, and brought her my binder, 9 years of it, 4 inches thick by then. She read the 1987 agreement twice, tapping the protection clause with one finger, and said 5 words I'll never forget. They can't legally do this. The clause my grandfather wrote wasn't cosmetic. It was ironclad, and it named, specifically, any shareholder who had exercised continuous, documented operational authority for a period exceeding 5 years. 9 years of my signatures, time-stamped and archived, were the proof. Rachel spent 40 minutes explaining exactly how a forced dilution attempt like Marcus's could expose the entire board to a shareholder oppression claim, and for the first time in 9 years, I felt something besides numb. Which brings us back to September 12th, 7:40 p.m., the anniversary gala, string lights over the dance floor, the smell of seared filet and candle wax, Marcus mid-toast in a navy tuxedo. Under my leadership, Vance Industrial will double revenue by 2027. That's when Frank Delgado, 79 years old, my grandfather's original partner, walked to the front of the ballroom with a folder he'd kept in his safe for 4 decades, the original signed 1987 partnership agreement, the one clause everyone but me had forgotten existed. He hadn't come for the filet or the cake. He'd come because I'd called him 2 weeks earlier, and because he still believed in what he and my grandfather built with their hands out of a converted grain warehouse. Frank set the contract on the podium, adjusted his reading glasses under the chandelier light, and read the protection clause aloud to 300 guests in a voice that hadn't lost its steel plant rasp. Eva Vance has held sign-off authority on every major contract in this company for 9 years, he said. Ask your controller, who's actually been signing off on your payroll runs, Marcus. The room went quiet enough to hear the ice settling in someone's glass 3 tables back. Marcus laughed first, defensive, said Frank was old and confused, said I'd abandoned the company years ago, and everyone in this room knew it. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked my navy binder to the podium, setting it beside Frank's folder, without a word. You can't rewrite 9 years of my signatures into someone else's story, I said. Not loud. I didn't need to be loud. The microphone did that work for me. My father's face went the color of the tablecloth. For one unguarded second, Marcus's bravado cracked. His eyes went wide, his hand trembled reaching for his water glass, and something close to real fear, real regret, passed over his face before he caught himself, straightened his jacket, and snapped back to defending his version of events to a room that had already stopped believing him. The board didn't need me to destroy anything. Bylaws did the work. Within 6 weeks, Marcus's proposed sole CEO succession was voted down 4-1. His leasing venture defaulted on its own merits 2 months later. The bank foreclosed on assets that were never mine to protect him from. I didn't lift a finger against him. I just stopped being invisible. My mother came to my apartment on Fenwick Street in October, no makeup, hands shaking, and said, I should have read the will myself. I let her in. That door, unlike my father's, stayed open. The board didn't ask me to speak again that night. They didn't need to. 6 weeks later, the vote came back 4-1 against Marcus's sole succession, and the board named a shared operating structure instead, with my role finally on paper, finally with a title, Chief Operating Officer, effective October 1st, 2025. My father hasn't apologized, not fully, not yet. But he shook my hand at the follow-up board meeting and said, your grandfather would recognize this company because of you. It's not everything. It's not nothing either. If any part of this is hitting close to home, drop a comment. I read every one of them. Here's what I know now that I didn't know at 22, sitting in that cubicle next to the server room that smelled like machine oil. Love that only shows up once your name is worth something isn't love, it's an invoice. Truth doesn't need volume. It needs a paper trail, a locked archive, and the patience to wait 9 years for someone to finally read it. I didn't win my family back that night in the ballroom under the chandeliers. I won myself back. The version of me that got to stop shrinking to fit someone else's story. The version that gets to walk into that plant every morning knowing exactly whose name belongs on the door and whose signature has been holding it up the whole time. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe, drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my place, and share it with someone who needs to hear that quiet, documented truth beats a loud lie every single time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.